I found the Tinder notification on a Thursday night while we were watching Netflix. 2 years into what I thought was the relationship of my life, and her phone lit up on the coffee table between us with a message from someone named Mike, 34. The preview read, "Hey beautiful still, want to meet up this weekend?" I remember staring at that screen for what felt like an hour but was probably 3 seconds. My brain couldn't process what my eyes were seeing. We were supposed to be exclusive. We were supposed to be building a future. Her Tinder profile was supposed to have been deleted 23 months ago. My name is Desmond Fletcher. I'm 62 years old, Canadian, and I've owned 3 successful businesses over my lifetime. I've negotiated million-dollar deals. I've managed teams of difficult people. I've always prided myself on being able to read a room, read a person, read a situation. I'm not some naive kid who just fell off the turnip truck. I'm a confident man who knows what he wants and how to get it. Or at least that's what I thought before I met Jiraporn. I met her in May of 2022 at a networking event in Bangkok. I'd sold my last business in Toronto and decided to spend a year in Thailand exploring potential investment opportunities. She wasn't working in a bar or anything like that. She was a legitimate businesswoman, running a small import-export operation dealing with Canadian maple products and Thai crafts. Professional, educated, spoke excellent English. She was 29, beautiful in that effortless way some Thai women have, and when she laughed at my jokes about Canadian stereotypes, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not just attraction. Recognition. Like I'd found someone who actually got me. We started dating within 2 weeks. I know what you're thinking. Another old Farang falling for a younger Thai woman. Another walking cliché. But it wasn't like that. She had her own business. She had her own money. She wasn't asking me for anything. In fact, she insisted on paying for half our dates in the beginning, which I found both charming and reassuring. Here was a woman who didn't need me for my wallet. She wanted me for me. Or so I thought. The first 3 months were incredible. We'd meet for dinner 3 or 4 times a week. She'd take me to places tourists never see, little restaurants in suburbs I didn't know existed, temples where we'd be the only people there at sunset. She introduced me to her business partner, a woman named Nat, who seemed genuinely friendly and welcoming. We'd spend weekends at her condo in Sukhumvit, ordering food delivery and talking until 3 in the morning about everything. Our childhoods, our past relationships, our dreams. She told me she'd been engaged once to a Thai man who'd cheated on her repeatedly, which was why she was done with Thai men. They were all Thailik, she said, all players who couldn't commit. She wanted someone mature, someone stable, someone like me. I fell hard. I'm not ashamed to admit it. At 62, you don't expect to feel that rush of new love anymore. You think those days are behind you. But there I was, acting like a teenager, checking my phone every 5 minutes to see if she'd messaged, smiling at random moments throughout the day, just thinking about her. My friends back in Toronto thought I'd lost my mind when I told them I was extending my stay in Thailand indefinitely. My daughter was concerned, kept asking questions about this woman, but I brushed her off. I was happy, genuinely, deeply happy, and I was confident enough in myself to know this was real. By August, we were exclusive. She deleted her dating apps right in front of me, made a show of it, laughing as she held her phone so I could watch her uninstall Tinder and some Thai dating app I'd never heard of. I don't need these anymore, she said, kissing me. I have everything I want right here. I deleted mine too, though I hadn't been active on them in months anyway. We were official. We were committed. We were building something real. I moved into her condo in September. It made sense. I was paying for a serviced apartment I barely used since I spent every night at her place. Anyway, she had space. Her place was bigger, nicer, better located. And truthfully, I wanted to wake up next to her every morning. I wanted the domestic routine, the little intimacies of shared life. Making coffee together, her stealing my t-shirts to sleep in. The mundane magic of being with someone. We fell into an easy rhythm. She'd work from home most days, taking calls with suppliers, managing shipments. I'd explore investment opportunities, meet with potential partners, work on setting up a new consulting business. Evenings were ours. We'd cook together, watch movies, make love, talk about buying a house somewhere quieter, maybe Hua Hin or Chiang Mai. We even talked about marriage, in that vague future tense way people do when they're testing the waters. Nothing concrete, but the possibility was there, hovering in the space between us like something we both wanted but were afraid to name too directly. I thought I knew her. I thought I knew us. I was so confident in what we had that I didn't see the signs. Or maybe I saw them and didn't want to acknowledge them. Because acknowledging them would mean admitting I might be wrong, and Desmond Fletcher is never wrong about people. That's what I told myself, anyway. The first thing I noticed, looking back, was probably in November. About 2 months after I'd moved in, she started taking her phone everywhere, and I mean everywhere. Bathroom, kitchen, even just walking from the living room to the bedroom. It was always in her hand or her pocket. At first, I thought nothing of it. Everyone's attached to their phones these days. But then I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen her phone sitting unattended anywhere. It used to be she'd leave it on the counter while she showered, on the nightstand while we watched TV. Now it was always with her, always face down, always within arm's reach. When I mentioned it casually one night, just a joking comment about how she was glued to her phone lately, she got defensive. Not angry exactly, but bristly. Said her business was picking up and she needed to be available for clients in different time zones. Which made sense. Of course it made sense. Her business was growing. That was a good thing. I dropped it. Then there was the password situation. Her phone had never been password protected before. I'd used it plenty of times to look something up when mine was charging or to take a photo when mine was in the other room. She'd use mine the same way. It wasn't a thing. But sometime around late November, early December, she added a passcode. I discovered this when I tried to check the time on her phone one morning while she was in the shower and mine was dead. The screen asked for a 6-digit code. I felt a weird flutter in my chest, something between confusion and unease, but I pushed it down. People are entitled to privacy. Maybe she'd had a security scare, heard about phone theft or hacking. It was Bangkok, after all. Made perfect sense, except she never mentioned it. Never said, hey, I added a password to my phone for security. It just appeared. And when I asked her about it a few days later, trying to sound casual, she said, oh, I've always had one, which was such an obvious lie that I actually laughed. But she didn't laugh with me. She just looked at me with this blank expression and said, why? Do you need to use my phone for something? The way she said it, the challenge in her tone, made me back off immediately. Around the same time, her schedule started changing. She'd always worked from home mostly, with occasional meetings in town. But suddenly she had more meetings, evening meetings, weekend meetings. Meetings that would run late until 9 or 10 at night. She'd come home looking tired, sometimes apologetic, sometimes distracted. I'd ask how it went and she'd give vague answers. Fine, good, productive, never names. I'd ask who she met with and she'd say clients or suppliers, but when I'd press for specifics, curious about her business in the way a supportive partner should be, she'd get irritated. Why do you need to know everything? She'd snap. Do I interrogate you about every meeting you have? I didn't interrogate her. I asked because I cared. But I started asking less. Started giving her space, because confident men don't nag. Confident men trust their partners. The sex changed too. Not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually over those months. We went from making love 4 or 5 times a week to maybe twice a week. Then once a week. Then once every week and a half. She was always tired or stressed or not feeling well. She'd initiate less and less. When we did have sex, she seemed somewhere else, going through the motions. I told myself it was normal. Relationships evolve. The initial passion phase fades into something more comfortable. That's what happens when you build a real partnership. That's what everyone says. But there was a voice in my head, getting louder, saying this wasn't normal comfortable, this was something else. This was disconnection. One night in January, about 4 months into living together, I woke up at 2 in the morning and she wasn't in bed. I could see light coming from under the bathroom door and hear her voice, quiet but animated. She was on the phone with someone, at 2 in the morning. I laid there listening, unable to make out words but catching the tone. Light, playful, the kind of tone you use with someone you're flirting with. She was in there for 20 minutes. When she came back to bed, she didn't say anything, just slipped under the covers and turned away from me. I didn't ask. I should have asked. But I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous guy, the insecure guy, so I said nothing. February brought more changes. She started dressing differently. Not dramatically, but noticeably. More makeup. Better outfits, even for days she claimed she'd be working from home. New perfume. She'd always been attractive, always took care of herself, but this felt different. This felt like she was dressing for someone. I complimented her one morning, told her she looked beautiful, and she barely acknowledged it. Just a distracted thanks while checking her phone. Her phone. Always her phone. Checking it constantly. Sometimes she'd see something and smile, that little private smile people get when they're texting someone they're excited about. Then she'd catch me watching and the smile would disappear. She'd put the phone face down, change the subject. I started paying more attention, not snooping exactly, just observing. I noticed she'd angle her phone away from me when typing. I noticed she'd wait until I left the room to take certain calls. I noticed when her phone buzzed with notifications, she'd check who it was before deciding whether to look at it in front of me. Some messages she'd read immediately. Others she'd let sit until she could step away. One Saturday in late February, we were supposed to spend the day together. She'd been so busy with work that we'd barely seen each other all week, and I'd planned a nice day. Lunch at a restaurant she'd mentioned wanting to try, then maybe a movie or a walk in Lumpini Park. But that morning she got a call and suddenly she had to meet a supplier. Emergency shipment issue. She'd be back in a few hours. She left around 11. She came back at 8 that evening. 9 hours to deal with a shipment issue. I asked how it went and she said fine, problem solved. She was exhausted. I asked what the issue was and she gave me this long, complicated explanation about customs and documentation that I couldn't follow and honestly felt designed to confuse me. I nodded along. I said I was glad she got it sorted. I didn't push, but I was starting to feel crazy, like I was the problem, like my suspicion was creating issues where none existed. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe this was just what happened in relationships after the honeymoon phase. Maybe I was the one with the issue, not her. I Googled relationship changes after moving in together and read articles that reassured me this was normal. People need space. People get busy. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. Except I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. In March, my buddy Dave came to visit from Toronto. I told him about Jiraporn, shown him photos, built her up as this amazing woman I'd found. He was happy for me, curious to meet her. We all went out for dinner one night, a place in Thonglor that Dave wanted to try. The whole evening felt off. She was polite to Dave but distant with me. At one point, her phone buzzed and she glanced at it and I saw her face change. Just for a second, a flash of something. Guilt? Excitement? I couldn't read it. She excused herself to the bathroom and was gone for 15 minutes. When she came back, she was more engaged, more present, but it felt performative. Like she was playing the role of attentive girlfriend for Dave's benefit. After she went to bed that night, Dave and I sat on the balcony with whiskey. He was quiet for a while, then he said, "Man, I don't want to overstep, but is everything okay with you two?" I asked what he meant. He said she seemed distracted, said it felt like she wasn't really there. I defended her, said she was stressed with work, said we were fine. He nodded, dropped it, but I could see he didn't believe me. After he left the next day, I felt hollow, because Dave seeing it meant it wasn't just in my head, something was actually wrong. I decided I needed to talk to her, really talk to her. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. I planned what I'd say. I'd be calm, rational, non-accusatory. I'd tell her I felt like we'd been drifting apart lately. I'd ask if she felt it too. I'd suggest we make more time for each other, maybe take a trip somewhere, reconnect. I brought it up on a Tuesday night. She'd come home around 9 from another meeting. I'd cooked dinner, opened a bottle of wine, tried to create a nice atmosphere. I told her I wanted to talk. I said I felt like we'd been disconnected lately, and I missed feeling close to her. I asked if everything was okay. She looked at me like I was crazy. Said everything was fine. Said she'd just been busy with work. Said I was being needy. That word, needy, hit me like a slap. I'm 62 years old. I've built businesses. I've been married and divorced. I'm not needy. I'm just trying to maintain a connection with my girlfriend. But she made me feel like I was the problem. Like wanting to spend time with her, wanting to feel close to her, was some kind of character flaw, so I backed off. Again, I said I understood. I said I was sorry for bringing it up. I went to bed feeling smaller than I'd felt in years. That's what gaslighting does. It makes you doubt your own reality. It makes you apologize for having reasonable needs. And I'm embarrassed to say it worked on me. For a while, April came. Our 2-year anniversary was approaching. May 15th, I'd been thinking about it for weeks, planning something special. I'd even been looking at rings, though I hadn't bought anything yet. I wasn't sure if it was too soon, but I knew I wanted to marry her, or I wanted to want to marry her, or I wanted to believe that what we had was worth marrying for. My thoughts on the subject were getting increasingly confused. One afternoon in mid-April, I was home alone. She was out at another meeting. I needed to check something on my laptop and realized I'd left my phone charger at the office downtown. Her spare charger was in the bedroom. I went to get it and saw her phone on the nightstand. She'd forgotten it. In 2 years, I'd never seen her forget her phone. Ever. I stood there looking at it for probably 5 full minutes. The rational part of my brain said leave it alone. Respect her privacy. The other part of my brain, the part that had been accumulating months of unease and suspicion, and those 2 in the morning phone calls and changed passwords and constant distraction, that part said, pick it up. I picked it up. The screen was locked, obviously. I tried a few codes, her birthday, my birthday, our anniversary. Nothing worked. I felt stupid standing there trying to crack my own girlfriend's phone like some jealous teenager. I put it back down, I got the charger, I left the room, but something had shifted. I'd crossed a line in my head. I'd tried to access her phone without permission, which meant I didn't trust her. And if I didn't trust her, what were we even doing? She came home around 6. I watched her pat her pockets, look around confused, then go straight to the bedroom. She came back out with her phone, looking relieved. I asked if everything was okay. She said she'd just forgotten her phone, no big deal. But the way she held it, protective, made me think she was checking to see if I'd tried to access it. Could phones tell you if someone attempted the wrong password? I didn't know. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid there next to her, listening to her breathe, and felt like I was sharing a bed with a stranger. How had we gotten here? When had this happened? Was it gradual, or had there been a specific moment where everything changed and I just missed it? The next day, Thursday, April 20th, changed everything. We were on the couch watching some Netflix series I wasn't really following. She was on her phone half the time, scrolling through Instagram or Line or whatever. I was pretending to watch TV while actually watching her. Her phone was on the coffee table. She'd gotten up to get water, and that's when it happened. The screen lit up with a notification. Tinder. The little flame icon I recognized from back when I'd used the app myself. Mike 34, hey beautiful, still want to meet up this weekend? I stared at that notification like it was a bomb that had just materialized in my living room. Tinder. She had Tinder. Not just had Tinder, was actively using Tinder, was talking to someone on Tinder, was making plans to meet up with someone from Tinder this weekend, while living with me, while supposedly building a future with me. She came back into the room. I must have looked like I'd seen a ghost because she stopped, looked at me, looked at her phone on the table, and her face went completely blank. We both stared at her phone. The notification was still visible. 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. She grabbed the phone, unlocked it. Her fingers moved fast, swiping away the notification. Then she looked at me. That's not what it looks like, she said. I've never heard a more cliché line in my life. That's not what it looks like. What else could it possibly look like? But I didn't say that. I couldn't say anything. My brain had stopped working. I just sat there. It's an old notification, she said. From before. I forgot I had the app still. You deleted it, I said. My voice sounded far away. In August, you deleted it in front of me. I must have reinstalled it by accident, she said. When I was cleaning up my apps, you reinstalled Tinder by accident. I was finding my voice now, finding words. You accidentally reinstall a dating app and accidentally create a profile and accidentally match with someone named Mike and accidentally message him about meeting up this weekend? It's not like that. She was getting defensive now, angry even. Why are you attacking me? Why do you have an active Tinder profile? I asked. Why is someone named Mike asking if you still want to meet up this weekend? Still, that word means you already made plans. You're planning to meet up with someone from Tinder this weekend while you're living with me. He's just a friend, she said. You meet friends on Tinder? Yes. People do that. Jiraporn, I said her name slowly. Please don't lie to me. Please just tell me the truth. I am telling you the truth. Her voice was rising. You're being paranoid and controlling, and I don't have to explain myself to you. There it was, the flip. Suddenly, I was the bad guy. I was paranoid. I was controlling. Not her, the person with an active dating profile messaging men while in a supposedly exclusive relationship. Me for noticing. Show me your phone, I said. Absolutely not. If it's nothing, show me your phone. I don't have to show you anything. You don't own me. I'm not trying to own you. I'm trying to understand why you're on Tinder 2 years into our relationship. She stood up. I'm not doing this. You either trust me or you don't. Right now I don't, I said. The words came out flat, emotionless, because something in me had shut down. Some protective mechanism had kicked in. I was watching this conversation from outside my body. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she grabbed her purse and her keys. I need some air, she said. We'll talk when you've calmed down. She left, walked out of her own condo. I sat there on the couch in silence. The TV was still playing. Some show about people baking. The normalcy of it felt obscene. I sat there for maybe an hour. Then I did what I should have done months ago. I opened my laptop and I investigated. If she wasn't going to tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. I started with social media. Her Facebook was locked down, but her Instagram was semi-public. I scrolled back through months of posts. Most were business-related or photos of food and scenery. But there were a few photos with groups of friends at bars and clubs. I recognized some faces, her business partner Nat, some other women, and men, several men. In some photos, there was one guy who appeared more than others. Young, fit Thai. In one photo from March, his arm was around her waist. The caption said something generic about celebrating a friend's birthday. But the way he was holding her didn't look friendly. It looked familiar, intimate. I reverse image searched some of her photos. Nothing suspicious came up, but one search led me to a Facebook profile. Not hers, his, the guy from the Instagram photos. His profile was in Thai, but Google Translate helped. His relationship status said it's complicated. His recent photos included several with Jiraporn. One from February showed them at a beach. The caption translated roughly to weekend getaway with my favorite person, February. That Saturday she'd left at 11 and came back at 8. The supplier emergency. She'd been at the beach with this guy. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not would come later. This was something structural, some load-bearing beam of my reality just snapping. I kept digging. I created a fake Facebook profile. Basic male profile, no details. I searched for Jiraporn, found her. Her profile was more public from this fake account than it had been from mine. Why? Had she blocked me from seeing certain things? I scrolled through. There were posts I'd never seen. Check-ins at restaurants and clubs on nights she'd said she was working. Photos with groups of people, including that same guy, tagged. His name was Crit. I clicked on Crit's profile, went through his photos more carefully. There was one from January. The two of them at what looked like a New Year's party. They were kissing. Not a friendly peck, a real kiss. The photo was dated January 1st. We'd spent New Year's Eve together, or I thought we had. She'd said she needed to visit her parents in Ayutthaya. Left on the 30th, came back on the 2nd. She'd been with him. How long had this been going on? Since the beginning? Since before me? The photos went back further than our relationship. Way further. They went back at least 3 years based on date stamps. Crit wasn't a new development. I was the new development. I spent the next 4 hours in that rabbit hole. I found more evidence than I wanted. Facebook check-ins showing her at hotels in Bangkok on days she'd told me she was working from home. Photos from dates I could match to my calendar when she'd told me she had meetings. Credit card charges. Wait, how did I have access to those? I didn't. But I remembered she'd asked me to help her set up her online banking once, and I'd used my laptop. I checked my browser's saved passwords. They were still there. I shouldn't have. I know I shouldn't have, but I did. Her bank statement told a story. Hotel charges on weekends. Restaurants I'd never been to with her. Purchases at places I didn't recognize. And money. Regular deposits I couldn't account for. Not huge amounts, but regular. 10,000 baht here. 15,000 there. She'd told me her business was doing well, but these weren't business transactions. They were transfers from individuals. I could see some of the names in the transaction details. Male names, Farang names, Mike David, Robert Thomas, multiple men. She wasn't just cheating with one person. She was running what looked like a small operation. How long? Had any of it been real? I heard the door open. She was back. It had been nearly 5 hours. I closed the laptop. I stood up. I felt eerily calm. That hollow numbness I'd felt during the conversation had spread through my entire body. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I wasn't anything. She came in looking wary. "We need to talk," she said. "Yes," I said. "We do, but first I have some questions. Who is Crit?" Her face went white. "What Crit?" "The guy you spent New Year's with. The guy you went to the beach with in February. The guy you've been with for at least 3 years based on your Facebook photos." "That Crit. You went through my Facebook?" "Who is Mike?" "The one from Tinder." "Or David, or Robert, or Thomas, the ones who've been sending you money." She just stared at me. "How many?" I asked. "How many are there? You had no right. How many?" My voice was still calm, still flat. It was the scariest I'd ever sounded, and I could tell she knew it. She sat down. Looked at the floor. For a long moment she said nothing. "Then you knew what I was. What does that mean?" "You knew I was a serial monogamist. I told you about my past. About how I dated people. Dated, past tense. Not currently dating, not while living with me. In Thailand this is normal," she said, not looking at me. "No, it's not. Don't use culture as an excuse for lying. I never lied. You deleted Tinder in front of me. You said you were done with dating apps. That was 8 months ago and you're still active on it." "That's a lie. I meant I was done seriously dating other people." "What does that even mean?" "It means you're the one I live with. You're the serious one. And the others?" She shrugged. "Friends." "Back up. I don't know. Options." "I was standing in a condo I'd been helping pay rent on with a woman I'd been planning to propose to, and she just called other men options. Like we were all interchangeable. Like I was just one choice among many." "How long?" I asked. "How long have you been seeing Crit?" "Since before you. And you never stopped." "No. The others? Some started after you. Some were from before. How many? Does it matter?" "Yes." She looked up at me finally. Her eyes were dry. She wasn't crying. She wasn't apologetic. She looked almost bored. "5. Including you. 5. I was one of 5. For 2 years I'd thought I was in an exclusive relationship. For 2 years I'd been one of 5 men she was seeing. Sleeping with, presumably. Taking money from, definitely." "Why?" I asked. It was the only question I had left. "Because I can," she said. "Simple as that." "Because men like you come to Thailand looking for someone younger and beautiful, and you think you're special. You think you're different from all the other old Farangs. But you're not. You're all the same. You're all lonely and you all have money and you all want to believe a woman like me would actually love you." Each word was a knife. Clean, precise, designed to cut. "Did you ever love me?" I asked. She thought about it, actually thought about it. Like she needed to check her inventory of feelings to see if love had been in stock at any point. "I liked you," she finally said. "You were nice, generous. You didn't ask too many questions. I asked plenty of questions. You just lied. You wanted to believe the lies," she said. "That's different." She was right. That was the worst part. She was absolutely right. I'd wanted to believe. I'd wanted to believe I was special. I'd wanted to believe the age gap didn't matter. I'd wanted to believe a successful, beautiful 29-year-old woman would choose a 62-year-old man for reasons other than money and convenience. My ego had made me blind. I want you out, I said. This is my condo. Then I'll leave. Fine. That was it. No fight, no tears, no begging me to stay or trying to explain or promising to change. Just fine. Like I was a tenant giving notice, not her boyfriend of 2 years. I packed that night. She went to bed, actually went to bed like nothing had happened. I could hear her in the bedroom on her phone, laughing at something, probably texting one of the others. Probably had a replacement lined up already. I threw my clothes into suitcases, grabbed my laptop and important documents, left everything else, the kitchen stuff I'd bought, the furniture I'd contributed, the framed photos of us I'd had printed and hung on the walls. Let her deal with it. Let her explain to the next guy why there are photos of her with a different Farang all over the apartment. I got a hotel room that night, couldn't go back there. Couldn't sleep in that bed knowing what I knew. The hotel was generic, clean, impersonal, perfect. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. I should have felt something, rage, sadness, betrayal. But I felt nothing, just hollow, empty, like someone had scooped out my insides and left a shell. I didn't sleep that night, or the next night, or the night after that. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through the past 2 years in my head, recontextualizing every memory. That weekend trip to Koh Samet where she was so happy. Had Crit been there the week before? That time she bought me an expensive watch and said it was because she loved me. Had one of the others bought it for her? Every I love you, every kiss. Every moment I'd treasured. What was real, what was performance? I'd never know. I thought about confronting the others, finding them, telling them. But what was the point? Maybe they knew. Maybe they were all in the same boat, thinking they were special while being one of many. Or maybe they didn't care. Maybe they were fine being options. I thought about warning future victims. Posting about her somewhere. Reddit. An expat Facebook group, but that felt petty. And honestly, who would listen? Every guy thinks he's different. Every guy thinks his situation is unique. I certainly did. 2 weeks after I left, she messaged me. You left some things here. When do you want to pick them up? Like I was a stranger. Like we hadn't lived together. Like I hadn't been planning a future with her. I told her to throw it all away. She never responded. I saw her one more time, about a month later. I was having coffee at a place in Phnom. She walked in with a Western guy, older than me, maybe mid-60s, heavy, balding, wearing a suit like he'd just come from a business meeting. She saw me, didn't acknowledge me, just looked right through me like I was furniture. The guy pulled out her chair for her, ordered for her, smiled at her like he'd won the lottery. I wanted to go over there. Wanted to pull him aside and warn him, save him from what I went through, but I didn't. I just watched them for a minute, then left. He was already convinced he was special. Anything I said would just make me look bitter. That's the thing about confidence. It makes you blind. I was so sure of myself, so sure I could read people, so sure I knew what I was doing. So sure I was different from all those other Farangs who got taken advantage of. And that confidence made me the perfect mark. Because I ignored every red flag. I explained away every inconsistency. I believed every lie. Because believing the lies confirmed what I wanted to believe about myself. I'm back in Toronto now. Been here about 6 months. My daughter was relieved when I told her I was coming home, though she was tactful enough not to say I told you so. My friends have been supportive, or at least trying to be. They ask me about Thailand like it's a country I visited, not a place where I lost 2 years and a chunk of my soul. I don't talk about her. What's there to say? I was one of 5. She never loved me. I was too confident to see it. The end. I haven't dated since. I'm not sure I want to. The thought of starting over, of trusting someone again, of believing anything anyone tells me about their feelings, it exhausts me. I look at couples now with suspicion. Who's lying to whom? Who's cheating? Who's the fool who doesn't see it? Maybe they're all fine. Maybe most relationships are honest and real. But I can't believe that anymore. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks about me at all, if any of it mattered to her even a little bit. But mostly I don't think about her. I can't afford to. Thinking about her means thinking about how stupid I was, how completely I was played, how my confidence was actually arrogance, how I thought I was immune to cliches while living one. The numbness hasn't gone away. I thought it would. I thought eventually I'd process it, feel it, move through it. But 6 months later, I still feel hollow. I go through my days. I see people. I have conversations. I function. But there's a space inside me where feelings used to be, and it's just empty now. People tell me it takes time, that I'll heal, that I'll be able to trust again. I nod and smile and don't tell them I don't think that's true. Here's what I learned, for whatever it's worth to anyone reading this. Trust your instincts. When something feels off, it's off. When someone changes their phone password out of nowhere, there's a reason. When someone's schedule suddenly gets busier and vaguer, they're making time for something they don't want you to know about. When someone gets defensive instead of reassuring when you express concerns, they're hiding something. And when someone deletes a dating app in front of you but keeps using it anyway, they never actually wanted to be exclusive. They just wanted you to think they did. The signs were all there. From month 3 onward, I had evidence. I just didn't want to see it, because seeing it would mean admitting I was wrong. And Desmond Fletcher doesn't get played, except I did, completely. If your girlfriend's behavior has changed, if she's suddenly protective of her phone, if her schedule doesn't make sense, if you're making excuses for things that shouldn't need excuses, if friends are trying to tell you something's wrong and you're getting defensive, if you feel crazy but also certain something's off, you're not crazy. Your instincts are right. Trust them. Investigate. And when you find what you're afraid you'll find, leave. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to understand it. Don't try to be the bigger person or give second chances. Just leave. Because here's the truth. If someone wants to cheat, they'll cheat. If someone wants to lie, they'll lie. And if someone sees you as an option among many, nothing you do will make you the only choice. You can't love someone into fidelity. You can't be good enough to prevent betrayal. Their choices are not about your worth. They're about their character. I wish I'd known that 2 years ago. I wish I'd listened to my gut in November when the phone behavior changed. I wish I'd left when she got defensive about that late-night call instead of doubting myself. I wish a lot of things. But wishes don't change the past. They just make the present more bitter. So now I'm here, 62 years old, back where I started, a little poorer, a lot more bitter, completely numb. People ask if I regret going to Thailand. I don't know how to answer that. I regret trusting her. I regret ignoring the signs. I regret being so confident in my ability to read people that I stopped actually looking at what was in front of me. But do I regret the experience? How can I regret something that's hollowed me out so completely? It's not even about regret anymore. It's about surviving it. And I'm surviving, barely, but I am. If you're reading this and thinking your situation is different, that your Thai girlfriend is not like this one, that you're smarter than I was, that it won't happen to you, maybe you're right. I hope you're right. But be honest with yourself. Look at the actual evidence, not the story you want to believe. Because I wanted to believe, too. I wanted it so badly I ignored everything screaming at me to wake up. Don't be like me. Don't let confidence become blindness. Don't let fear of being controlling prevent you from asking necessary questions. Don't let someone gaslight you into thinking your legitimate concerns are paranoia. And don't ever believe that love is enough to keep someone faithful. It's not. Character is. And if someone lacks character, no amount of love will fix that. I thought I was special. I thought I was different. I thought confidence and maturity made me immune to being fooled. I was wrong about all of it. And that's something I have to live with now. This numbness, this emptiness. This knowledge that I spent 2 years of my life in a complete fantasy, that every moment I treasured was a lie, that I never knew her at all. She's still in Bangkok, still running her business. Still seeing multiple men, I assume. Still collecting options. And there's nothing I can do about that. I can't stop her. I can't warn everyone. I can't even really blame her, not entirely. She told me what she was at the end. I just hadn't wanted to see it. The worst part isn't even the betrayal. It's the self-knowledge that came with it. I'm not as smart as I thought. Not as perceptive. Not as special. I'm just another old guy who got played by a younger woman in Thailand. Just another cliché. Just another cautionary tale that other men will read and think, that won't happen to me, while it's already happening to them. I found her Tinder profile active after 2 years. But really, I'm sure it was active from day one. I was just too confident to check.